Okay, so a few things that we're going to do tonight is we're going to make it very not overwhelming, I promise. We are going to talk first about kind of in general what EMFs are. I call them pollution. The world calls them EMFs because really they're pollution, pollution for our bodies and really just stuff that kind of weighs ourselves down, okay? So we're going to talk about what they are in a very simplistic way. We could go down the rabbit hole, but I honestly don't think that ever is very productive because then we just get paralyzed. So we're not going to get paralyzed tonight. We're going to talk about what they are. We're going to talk about very, very simple ways that you can go through your home, as Jill said, and have a starting point. Because again, if we are looking at this very big topic, and it's a very charged topic right now because the whole thing is 5G, right? All the conversation has been about 5G. Oh my gosh, it's going to kill me. I can't leave my house, but my house is killing me, but outside is killing me. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to not do anything. So we don't need to get into that place. We can start very, very simply and make little changes that are going to actually make the biggest impact for your health. And then we're going to kind of cover some Young Living stuff too. I'm really excited about that, just in terms of how we can really focus on the two areas of our body, opening detoxification pathways and lowering inflammation levels, because that's really where radiation or electromagnetic pollution can affect our bodies the most. So are we ready to get started? Yes. Okay. So we do call this electropollution. Now, EMFs, technically electromagnetic frequencies, but I like to call them pollution because they really are a pollutive source around us. But like I said, there is stuff that we absolutely can do to control it. The human body, I'm going to get into this in 1 second. The human body is actually designed to evolve. And I want you to really understand that because we have evolved for thousands of years with many different things that have happened in our society, right? We're still here. We have evolved. So your body is actually designed to do that process. Some frequencies are good. Does anybody have this next to them? This is an example of a good frequency, your bottle of oil, right? This carries frequency to it. Your body is going to be very receptive to that frequency, and we would consider that a good and positive frequency. Things like oils, certain supplements, prayer raises the frequency of your body, or meditation, infrared saunas, things that the body really likes. So there is not everything out there is bad, okay? And we really run into problems, especially in the natural health sphere, when we go down the road of everything is bad and we put it all in one box. And I think we can see that, how that's come to the surface, maybe even in the modern day that we're living in right now, is nothing is a one-dimensional approach. Everything is multidimensional and every single person's body is different. So there are good frequencies out there. And then there's frequencies that certain bodies can be very sensitive to. You might have that body that's very sensitive to something. You might put AirPods in and get a headache. Cause and effect. That would be an example of your body is very sensitive to a certain frequency. The main sources that we actually begin to see good frequencies from are things like the earth and the moon. Now, the moon, during a full moon, we like to joke around that all the crazies come out, right? Maybe because they have parasites in them, I don't know. But really, the moon and the earth is a good example of a great source of frequency for us. The cycles that men and women go through, okay? We change our frequency as women when we're on our cycle every 30 days or every 28 days. Men actually go through a cycle too. DC voltage, so an in current from deep in the Earth's core is another example of a good frequency. Grounding, have you guys heard of grounding? You walk barefoot on the beach. That's an example of your body absorbing the Earth's core frequencies. And that's very good for you because it helps you feel grounded, right? And it helps to also dissipate bad frequencies around you. Also light resonance. Okay. So things like there's something called the Schumann resonance. So this is just certain lighting. light, dark, night, day. Those things are really good for us, right? Invisible light, UVA, UVB, they're not all bad, guys, I promise you. Sometimes it's just the stuff we're putting on our skin that contains the chemicals that are bad. But the sun is not bad for us, okay? Now, then we have frequencies that are man-made, okay? So this is where we get into a different sphere of things that have happened over the years. And once we begin to create these man-made frequencies, that's where our body does begin to learn and to adapt. But that does not mean that we're not going to be sensitive to something, or that does not mean that we should not be aware if there's a certain exposure that's really making us feel sick or really causing some harm in our body. Here's an example. Do you know what made a huge switch? Did you guys ever wear Keds? Do you remember when Keds came out? I was so into Keds. Well, guess what? It's a rubber soled shoe versus a leather soled shoe, which now blocks any frequency from the earth that you're going to get into your body that's good. So that's just an example of how we have created these man-made synthetic things that aren't always good for us, right? And it's just being aware of it. Artificial light, so the white light that many of us have in our homes and our office buildings, and instead of firelight, right? So it used to be you did your homework by the lantern of the natural firelight, which didn't do anything to your body except don't tip the lantern over. So things have changed in terms of where we are getting unnatural frequencies. And so unnatural frequencies can create some stressful and chaotic environments in our body. It's the signal characteristic of the frequency that matters, right? So we're going to get into that in a little bit, but when the body is in harmony, so think about this, when our body is in harmony, it's going to harmonize with another frequency that's good for it. When our body's not in harmony and there's a frequency that's not good for it, it's going to cause chaos in the body. And that's kind of a way to just think about it in a very simplistic standpoint. Now, this slide, the annual death toll, don't know if you guys know this, is around 7 million per year from smog. Okay, so this is really interesting to me because when we look at environmental pollutants, okay, when we're even thinking about the conversation of environmental pollutants, we're often hit with all of these things that have to do with smog and have to do with air, other types of air pollutants. But what is not typically a part of the conversation are these other environmental pollutants like electromagnetic pollutants. Okay, so this is where we need to have this conversation about this, because we can look at this and go, yeah, smog is terrible. It makes your body feel unhealthy. It clogs up everything in your body. It can cause respiratory issues, and then it can cause disease, and it can cause some really bad things. But in this same bucket is also EMFs, or environmental pollutants, other environmental pollutants, okay? So just know, okay, so I'm gonna show you this. Okay, this is very eye-opening. This was back in 2002 and 2003. Okay, by the way, I didn't even have a phone in 2002. Did anybody else not have a phone along with me in 2002? I don't think I got my first one until probably 2005. So I am one of those, and my husband never had a smartphone until we got married, okay? So we're still out there. Some of us are still out there. But anyways, this was this cell stuff that was happening back in 2002 and 2003. Now, let's take a look at 2017. Okay, very eye-opening. And this was 2017. We are in 2022 with now the rollout of 5G and more cell towers and more things around us, more AirPods in people's ears and all of these things, right? So this is extremely eye-opening when we look at how things have changed over the years. Things like Wi-Fi hotspots and cell towers, as I mentioned. So red, orange, yellow, these are very intense places that you might feel more in your body, especially if you have a very sensitive body, okay? Now, when we look at something like, I just gave it away. I want you to take a guess at how much it's increased since 2017. There's your answer, a quintillion. Okay, so just to give you an idea of a quintillion, This is a very large number, okay? 1,000,000 seconds is like 11 days, okay? 1 trillion seconds is 32,000 years. A quintillion is 32 billion years. That is how much it has increased over the last few years, which means we just need to be aware. Okay, this is not about instilling fear. This isn't like, oh my gosh, I can never do anything for the rest of my life. This is like, okay, let's dig in. Let's be more aware and let's figure out how we can make an action step. And are we being overexposed? What is the range? Is the range, is the current safety levels of EMFs, are they even accurate? Okay, I'm going to just say no, they're not, right? So you have some different organizations, I'll say. So one of them is called ICNIRD, and then you have like the FCC, right? Which are supposed to be measuring EMF levels, radiation levels, what is safe, what is not safe. So I'm going to just say that the levels that we are at currently right now of what is deemed safe is very inaccurate for how the world has changed and how things have changed that are close to us, in our homes, in our ears, in our pockets, things that we're sleeping next to. It is drastically different than where these supposed safety levels are. So we have to ask that question of, are we actually in a safety or in an accurate safety range, okay? And the answer for all of these is that the levels that the FCC or the levels that some of these organizations will put out there are widely different and widely inaccurate for what we're actually being exposed to. Okay, so this one can kind of give you an example. And this goes into, there are some very good studies out there. Now, listen, you can go and you can Google all you want on the internet. You're going to find a wide variety of things. Okay, just saying. We know that with almost any topic we might want to Google, you never know what you're going to get. It's like a box of chocolates. So we have to be very, very careful with what we are reading and how we're attaching also common sense to that and attaching, well, how does my body feel? How do I feel? Do I feel like I'm not sleeping well? Do I feel like I get a headache when I put my AirPods in my ear? Am I on my smartphone all the time like this with just radiation coming right into my brain, right? Am I sleeping with my phone charging next to me? You know, troubleshooting these things for yourself, because again, every person's body is different. And the problem is you're putting each person's individual constitution of their body up against a standard that is widely inaccurate. So think about that. And we could actually apply that to a lot of different things in the medical industry too. So there have been studies after studies after studies done to show how fertility is impacted by EMFs. And think about, where are you putting your phone? Are you putting it in your pocket right next to your reproductive organs, right? Are we putting it in our bra right here next to us? I used to do that. And I was like, I should probably not do that anymore, just in case. Better be safe than sorry, right? So where we are putting our devices. Now, again, these are just studies that have been done to show, look at where the FCC limit is, but look at how little of an exposure and how much sperm count goes down with a tiny exposure to EMFs, okay? So 3% of the population actually have severe symptoms to EMF. Now, again, we have to look at this and go, okay, every person's body is a little bit different. But we do know that there is a small segment of the population, and studies have been done. One of them, you can look her up. It's Dr. Magda Havas, and she's from Canada, and she's done a lot of extensive studies on EMFs and exposure and fertility and all of that. But we know that there's a segment of the population that has some severe reactions to electromagnetic pollution. And 35% of the population have mild to moderate symptoms, okay? Now, remember, this is very important. We have got to steer away from one cause for one illness and one pill for every ill, right? What does that mean to you? One cause for every illness, one pill for every ill. It's not that simple. It's multifaceted. There's a lot of factors that come into play when we're trying to troubleshoot for ourselves. Why am I feeling this way? Could it be my AirPods? Could it be that my home has high EMFs? Am I next to a cell tower? Did my neighbors just put something in their home? And maybe it's causing me to not feel very well. So we have to look at this from a broad perspective and understanding that although we have ample evidence to show the current safety guidelines are very inaccurate and not updated for what current exposure is, we also know that through many studies, we know that this can impact the DNA. We know this can impact fertility. We know that it can actually affect T cells. And your T cells are your fighter cells. They're like your killer cells, right? They're what protects your body from cancer. So we want to keep our T cells very healthy and very vibrant. When we look at symptoms, again, I want you to put that there's no one cause for every illness. There's no pill for every ill. Okay. Is that you might have everything on this list. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're having a massive problem with EMF exposure, but it's something to think about. The most common symptom that I will tell you is poor quality sleep. The very first thing that you will feel an impact from when you start to look at your home and do some of these simple steps we're going to talk about is you're going to get better sleep. I can guarantee it. You're going to get better sleep because that's the number one thing that EMF pollution starts to do to our bodies is it disrupts our sleep. And the reason is most of the time, the highest levels that we're getting is when we're asleep in our bedroom, which is supposed to be our sanctuary, right? So things like fatigue and weakness, sleep disturbance, headaches and migraines, I've actually known a lot of people to get that from AirPods in their ear. We do not use AirPods. I refuse to use them. I put a cord in my phone and put the headphones in my ear. And I talk on speakerphone. You will never, ever, ever catch me doing this. I talk on speakerphone all the time. I do Marco Polo. I do voice text messages. I do voice Facebook messages. But unless it's an emergency or the dentist call in to make an appointment for my kids or something, I will probably not pick up my phone and put it to my ear. So these things are not to scare you. It's something to help you troubleshoot and realize that across the board, EMF exposures can cause a lot of different things, okay? So electropollution is a growing problem, right? Now, the main problem is very controllable, right? And we're going to talk about that next. Under the surface, what we're seeing, especially with things like 5G, is really it's just proliferating an additional problem, okay? Because now you got to add more cell towers, and now you got to do this, and now you got to do that. You will always see benefits by being aware and controlling your environment, which you absolutely can. And so let's get into some action steps about that. I am going to go to this one if it will let me. Yep. Okay. Can you see that? How can we prioritize? Can you guys see that okay? Did it switch over? Yes. Okay. All right. So how can we prioritize? So if electromagnetic pollution is all around us, supposedly, right? And it is, it's inside our homes, it's outside our homes. How do we begin to prioritize? Because again, we can get paralyzed. We can get very paralyzed by going, oh my gosh, I need to do everything. And not only that, but you could spend thousands of dollars on this and also create a problem with family members who now resent you for it, who don't understand it. I've seen it happen, right? So it's the EMF topic is one of those like, should we talk about that like politics or should we not talk about that? It's like the religion, politics, EMFs are now part of that. Maybe we should just stay away from it at the Thanksgiving table. But anyways, it can cause some stuff because, you might be really, really motivated to make these changes and maybe your spouse isn't, maybe they don't understand. That's okay. We're going to prioritize and you're going to start in the most important areas. All right. So let's go to, again, just touching on 5G really quick, because this is really the biggest part of the conversation right now, is that when 5G rolled out, everyone was like, oh my gosh, 5G, you're going to kill yourself. Now, should we be concerned about 5G? Well, 5G, what you're really concerned about I kind of mentioned a little bit, is it's really proliferating an additional problem, in that now you have to add more towers. Now you have to do more things to support the 5G. And it oscillates very, very quickly, okay? So they're millimeter waves, which is the biggest concern with 5G is they're millimeter waves and they're oscillating very, very fast, which means your body could have a very significant reaction to that oscillation. So should we be concerned about it? Of course, because I do think it's just creating more of a problem in general for all other things. But we can again go back to taking care of a list and prioritizing, which is not going to paralyze us, and it's going to give us a plan, okay? So something called the ALARA principle. This is as low as reasonably achievable, okay? So what does this mean? Put this next to those of you who are nurses. Jill, I think you are a nurse, right? So when you do like radiation, or you do like an MRI, or you're choosing to do something like that, we apply this principle, which is as low as reasonably achievable to get what you need. Now, if you don't need it, then you don't do it, right? If you are going to get a result from it that you think is needed, then have it be as low of a exposure as possible, okay? So even if it's a small dose, if it's a dose that has no direct benefit, then you should avoid it. So I want you to use this ALARA principle into how we prioritize with EMFs, okay? So is there, for example, is there a Wi-Fi router in your home? Okay, you might need it during the day. Can you turn it off at night when you go to sleep? Do you need to have it on at night when you're sleeping and resting, right? That is just one example of we can avoid a small dose if it has no direct benefit to us. Is there something in your home currently that has Wi-Fi, that has Bluetooth, and you don't need it, nobody uses it, why do you have it? So apply the ALARA principle to that, okay? And how low is low enough? Well, it depends on your current health status, okay? Meaning when we are, think of your health status as like this, this balance, right? So if your current health is really good, right? So if you're looking at the nourishment versus stress here, okay? If I am operating in a place of I'm eating super nutritional dense foods and I'm meditating and I'm praying and I've got good balanced emotions and I don't really have a lot of interpersonal relationship conflict things going on in my life, and I'm using my oils and I'm taking my supplements and I'm making all the good lifestyle choices, your balance scale is going to be like this, right? Which means that an EMF exposure is probably not going to affect you as much as if your balance scale is in the opposite, okay? Is if you're going to probably be a bit more sensitive if you're like, I'm sedentary, I'm fighting with all my family members, my husband and I are fighting, I'm drinking poor quality water filled with fluoride, I'm eating poor food, I've got stress, I'm driving in traffic to work every day like this, I've got conflict everywhere in my life. Your balance scale is going to be up here and your body is not going to be able to detox and mitigate even low EMF exposures. So your body's innate intelligence is to want to heal itself all the time. Think about it. When you get sick, you go take a nap, right? When you get sick, you go to bed and you rest. And that rest is your body's rejuvenation process and how to get better and to heal. So your personal circumstances matter in terms of how low is low enough. It's really hard to answer that question because only you can answer that question. Only you get to decide what your lifestyle choices are, what you're willing to change in your life, not somebody else. That's up to you, okay? So we have to think about, we're gonna think about the 3D system here, okay? So this is how we're gonna start to really action step. What do we do? Downtime, duration, and distance, all right? So let's talk about downtime for a second. Science clearly shows, it's very, very clear that, actually, I'm gonna stay on this slide for a second, that when your body is more prone to being disrupted by EMFs at night. So your first priority is your bedroom, okay? That is your first priority to clean up is your bedroom. You spend a third of your life in your bedroom. Maybe for some people, some longer, I don't know. Depends on how healthy the relationship is. But anyways, you spend a third of your life in your bedroom. So that is your first area to think about where you want to clean up. Is your Wi-Fi router in your bedroom? Get it out of there. Shouldn't be in your bedroom, right? Do you charge your phone next to your head? Don't do that. Turn off your phone, put it on airplane mode, right? Go back to an old-fashioned alarm clock if you need one. Actually, the coolest thing when you start to really detox and clean out your body is you actually start to wake up on time. Has anybody else experienced that? I don't even need an alarm clock anymore. I just wake up at 5:30 in the morning every morning because my body has been trained to do that now, where I used to need an alarm clock because my body was so taxed with toxins that it didn't know what to do all the time, right? So our downtime is very, very important. And your downtime is actually your most important area to mitigate first, okay? So this is also like your favorite sofa you like to chill on. Eating, detoxing, resting, detox bath, meditating, sauna time, anything that is the parasympathetic nervous system, okay? Rest and digest. In Chinese medicine, we call this the yin state. This is all about your parasympathetic nervous system. And this is your first priority of where you're going to clean up exposures. And this is your roadmap. And we're not going to get all confused and paralyzed. You're going to start with your bedroom. You're going to start with the rest and digest phase. Okay. If you're eating lunch, don't be on your phone. Rest and digest, right? Also, another part of this is like your office space. So a lot of people are working from home now. And so now this is 2/3 of your life is your office space and your car. I'm just going to say it. I'm not a huge fan of electric cars because you're literally riding in an electric cube. So I'm not a huge fan of it, but that's just my personal opinion in that that's been a choice that I've said, I don't really want that in my life. So I'm not going to do that right now. To each their own. But ask yourself, are you spending 2 hours a day commuting in that? Because if you are, then you're going to need to do some action steps, which we're going to talk about in the very last phase of this call, is how we can help our body detox more and be less inflammatory if we are exposed to things, right? So think about your office space as well, because this is where we spend a lot of time. And maybe you don't need to have your Wi-Fi router on when you're just doing work and you're not on a phone call. Maybe you don't have to have your Wi-Fi router in there, right? So just little things like that. Maybe we don't need to put our AirPods in all day, okay? So this goes into duration. So let me talk about duration for a second. We need to be logical, okay? Common sense logic. Remember this, write this down. Logic is fast, science is slow. And what do I mean by that? Science takes a long time to catch up, but logic happens immediately. Common sense happens right away. We just ignore that because we are living in a very noisy world right now. So we kind of forget about logic sometimes. So here's an example of logic for duration. Duration meaning how long are we being exposed to something, okay? So you could go to the internet and you could Google and some blogger could say, oh my gosh, throw away your blender. It's got EMFs in it. It's going to kill you. Okay. How long are you standing in front of your blender, may I ask? And can you walk away from your blender while you're pureeing your smoothie in the morning? Sure, logic, right? Are you putting something in the microwave for 10 minutes and literally standing in front of it? Or could you walk away from it or maybe not use your microwave at all? We don't have a microwave. So logic, right? Here's another example. Are you putting in AirPods all day long? Or maybe your children have gotten into the habit of putting AirPods in their ear all day long. Do they need to do that? Duration. Or do you put AirPods in to listen to a phone call if you need to in a noisy area and then you take them out, right? So duration is very flexible. And this is again where we start to look at this overall conversation and go, okay, what can I do, right? So the things that need to be mitigated first are the things that are long duration exposure points. That's where you start. And that's very controllable. Everyone can throw away their AirPods or use them every so often, or get just the old fashioned cord, which is what I like. Okay. So think about how long and the duration. Now, the last one is distance. Okay. So distance levels are important because science does show, so far, the science that we can find, is that obviously the closer you are to something, the stronger something is. I mean, this would just be common sense. If I'm gonna stand next to radioactive something, probably not gonna be good for my body or safe for my body, okay? If I'm getting an X-ray and I don't wear something over to protect myself, that's very close distance to my body. If I have a cell phone in my pocket, that's very close distance to my body. So the closer an EMF emitting source, the more likely it is to cause health effects. So we can look at this circle here and we can go, okay, on the body sources. Well, this is very controllable. I don't need to put my cell phone in my pocket. I can put it somewhere else, or I can put it in something that is like a protective sleeve, right? It's an EMF protective sleeve that I can put my cell phone in. Things like your phone to your ear. We kind of already mentioned that, not putting the phone to the ear. The tablets, the laptop on your lap for hours on end. Wireless routers, Bluetooth sensors in your home, breaker boxes, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth printers. All of these things are like on the body and near sources. So these are things that we can control. So that's kind of your next phase, is you're going, all right, this is something I can control and something that I can change the behavior of, which means that my body's going to get less exposure to something. The harder ones are the ones that are outside sources. This is going to go into our last phase of the chat tonight, which is, you know, we can't always control if they put 50 cell towers right around our house. I mean, we could move for sure. Can't control maybe if my neighbor installs something that is high EMF emitting. There's things in the outside world that we always don't have control over, but what we do have control over is the terrain of our body. So that means, how are we creating the strongest body that we can in order to be as protective of these outside sources that I don't have as much control over, but in fact, I do really have control, because I can control the health and the lifestyle of my body that I choose, right? And the two main areas that we go into with this is going to be, I'm actually going to stop my screen share. Oh, did I just mess that up? No, I didn't. Stop screen share. Okay, there we go. Now you're just going to get me talking. So you're welcome. We're going to talk about some things that we can use and do to help create a strong terrain in our body. And again, when, you know, we can apply this to a lot of areas in our life of what can I control and what can't I control. Can't control if somebody has an emotional outburst at me, but I can control dumping some joy all over my head and not having the emotional outburst back at them, right? So we can control the terrain. We can control the strength of our body, okay? Those of you that have been around a little while, do you remember Quad Shield? Anybody remember that? Okay, so Quad Shield is one of my absolute favorites, and I am like pumped. Like, let me tell you right now that when Longevity soft gels comes back, I'm buying all of them. So you better be quick on the trigger, okay? Because it is like a phenomenal product. And right now I make my own longevity capsules. Does anybody else do that? So you take your Longevity, you get your empty capsules, and I take 1 to 2 a day. Okay, so let's talk about why Quad Shield was designed by Gary to help protect our bodies from environmental exposures, okay? So a couple things that we look at in Quad Shield is it comprised of Longevity soft gels, which, now remember, you can make your own capsules. I fill mine all the way up and I don't dilute it. I am the like, don't ask me about dilution, because I'll probably say don't dilute it, okay? And it has Melrose and it has Super C. So why does it have some of these things in it, right? So Longevity has clove, frankincense, and orange. Now, if you look at when our body is exposed to environmental triggers, okay, what happens in our bodies, right? Now, there's a rebalancing phase that occurs, okay? So our body's gonna go, oh, what is this? And how do I get rid of it? Okay, that's really what it's saying to you, is what is this and how do I get rid of it? Because I don't want this in my body. And how do I keep my cells clean, right? Because clean cells equal a happy body. So in terms of clove, it's got a very high antioxidant. It's got a very high ORAC. So that's your oxygen capacity, your basically like free radical capacity of an oil, okay? And it's very, very high. Same thing with Ninja Red. So these are very important because they help to keep our cells clean and happy, okay? We want things that have high antioxidants in them that can help our body just when it gets an exposure to something it doesn't like, it knows what to do. It's like you're training your body with what to do all the time, okay? So clove, frankincense, and orange. You can definitely go PubMed some of those because you're going to find a lot of really good studies on clove, frankincense, and orange. But that's why longevity is in there, because it's a natural way that your cells will go, I don't need this and I'm clean. So bye-bye toxin, right? Okay, and then Melrose. Melrose is actually something I use before I get on a plane. So I take Melrose, and before I opt out of the scanner. That's just a personal choice. But, you know, if you're sitting in a plane, you're kind of in a fuselage of radiation for a few hours. Okay. So it means that our bodies are going to get exposed to some additional things, and it could be a very high frequency. I am not the only one. I could guess that you kind of get off a plane and you feel like, oh, I just don't feel really good. Right. And sometimes we go, oh, it was all the people on the plane. It was all their germs. But it very well could be that you're in this fuselage of all this energy and frequency around you, and your body just doesn't really know what to do. Okay. So I use Melrose before I get on a plane. I will put it all over my body. I'll put it on my neck, and I'll put it over my thyroid. And I do that because it's got clove in there. It's got rosemary, and it has a bunch of tea tree oils, different versions of our tea tree oils. Melaleucas. And this is, again, very helpful for the body. It sort of looks at like outside exposures like frequency and radiation, and it just kind of stops it, right? It stops it from affecting your body. And then Super C. So Super C is, you know, when you look at vitamin C, it's really just a detoxification powerhouse. It's going to help your body detox more efficiently and help it to purge the things it doesn't need. Now, even if we don't have Quad Shield, you can put all those together, right? We can do Melrose, we can make a longevity capsule, and we can take Super C. So you can easily put that together. When I'm traveling, oftentimes I will up my vitamin C as well, because I know that my body needs that to be more efficient, okay? Another one is reishi mushrooms, okay? So reishi mushrooms, tell me what product we have reishi mushrooms in. I wanna know. I wanna know you're on your game right now. What is a product we have reishi mushrooms in? And what, yes, ImmuPro. Okay, we take this almost every night. Now, there's a few reasons why we take this, but it's really good to help the immune system, number one, really great for good quality sleep. And remember, in the conversation, what's happening when we are sleeping, it's a rebalancing phase. It's a purging phase. It's a detox phase that's happening in our bodies. So we want to provide the best environment that we can by not only removing the exposures, but what can we take to help our body be as healthy as possible while we are in that rest and digest phase. So the reishi mushroom is considered the king of Chinese medicine, you guys. It has incredible immune properties. It's not your pizza topping kind of fungus, I promise. It's a really, really good one. And I would go Google that one too, or PubMed it actually. So reishi mushrooms, in essence, help your body defend itself against toxins, okay? And it helps to reduce that additional exposure that you might have, that your personal body might have to these outside frequencies or inside frequencies. Now, when ImmuPro comes back in stock, you better stock up. I've got like a back stock of 15 or 20 because I learned a long time ago to never be without this product, okay? I learned it the hard way. So make sure you get some back stock. And this is just a little tip, is when something comes and you know that you use it and you know it's a part of your lifestyle and you literally can't function without it. Like I cannot function without multigreens. Buy an extra to have in back stock, because the worst thing is when you don't have it and you need it, when your body needs that. Okay, so next one, multigreens, kelp and choline. So kelp is a natural way, sea kelp, greens, chlorophyll, all these things are a natural way to help our body be as effective as possible at detoxing. Somebody just said about gluten-free. I just want to address that for a second. I personally have yet to know one person that has had an issue with gluten, that has had an issue with multigreens. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but I want to explain something to you. Is we can't look at something in a one-dimensional approach. So we can't look at something and go, well, that has that in there, which means I'm going to react to it. Have you tried it first? How do you know? Because everything is about the source of something. How is something fermented? How is it being curated? How is it being grown? How is it being distilled? Why do we use these instead of oils from Bed Bath & Beyond? Because of how it's distilled, because of how pure it is. So if you're looking at something in terms of this topic of gluten, this goes a little bit deeper than just saying, I can't do it because I can't do gluten. That, I think, is selling ourselves short, honestly, because the whole thing with gluten too and gluten-free labeling is it's insanely expensive. I'm going off on a little rabbit trail tangent here, but I think it's important because we have to understand that sometimes things aren't labeled a certain way because there's like 5 million levels of red tape to get through. And would you rather a company raise their prices, or would you rather a company say, yeah, there's technically no gluten in it, right? And really try it and see how it does for you, okay? Same thing with organic. You guys, organic is such a farce. I mean, there's countries that don't even have that standard. So you can't even use it, but we have all these people going, well, it's not organic. Well, know your farmer, okay? Just know your farmer. All right, I'm done on my tangent. Okay, multigreens, so good. All right. I'm seriously an Enneagram 8 through and through. Okay. So research shows that health benefits of eating a chlorophyll-rich diet. So this is going to be things like multigreens and things like foods that have high density to them, like vitamin A, C, E, and K. Antioxidants, we're back to that word again. Ninja Red, longevity capsules, okay? Is that when we're filling our body packed with goodness like that, it increases the flow of oxygen throughout our body. So if we increase the flow of oxygen throughout our body, then we can cleanse toxins easier and we can detox toxins easier, okay? We can even help our body sort of have this shield in a way against harmful pollutants. It can help keep our respiratory tract nice and healthy. And it can help that kind of day-to-day inflammation we get just by living in this world and having exposures, okay? So we want to really eat very dense nutritional foods. And now we can't supplement our way to health, right? So this isn't like, well, let me just put my AirPods in all day long and then go take 10 multigreens. It doesn't work that way, right? So we have to make the lifestyle changes, but then we can use supplements that can help put our body in a place that it's going to function the best it can, okay? So different things about like greens and kelp and chlorophyll and why I'm such a fan of multigreens and I literally can't live without it is it just helps oxygenate. It helps add oxygen to everywhere in our body. It helps boost energy levels. It has blood building properties to it. So chlorophyll has blood building properties, sea kelp, all of these things. And it increases cellular energy production. Okay, so really, really good things that you can incorporate that can help. Next one, Thyromin. So Thyromin is part of Quad Shield, my bad. So that was the last part of it. So Thyromin, I also take this before I travel or get on a plane to help protect my thyroid. Now you think about it, why do we take iodine as nourishment for our thyroid? Because it helps protect our thyroid from radiation, right? So iodine is like food for the thyroid. So if we're being exposed to things, we're going to want to make sure that we're feeding our thyroid the best that it can get. Thyromin's a bit different than Endoflex. I just saw that comment pop up because Thyromin is going to give you some of that iodine and it's just going to help to nourish any type of stuff that it needs in order to help combat these environmental exposures that we are all up against, okay? The next one is sulfurzyme. So you guys know if you follow me on social media or anything, I cannot get enough of talking about sulfurzyme. There's two different versions, right? There's the powder and the capsules. I personally prefer the powder to open detox pathways. And here's why. I take the capsules throughout the day to help with, just that day-to-day inflammation we get, some joint stuff. You're getting older, you're working out, your knees are hurting, all that. Great, awesome. But the powder helps to open detox pathways because it's working alongside the gut. So when we are promoting good gut health in our bodies, when we're working on our guts through enzymes like Detoxime would be my next favorite, and taking sulfurzyme powder with the prebiotics, now they're working in unison to open those detox pathways so that if you're binding toxins in your body, they need somewhere to go, okay? They need a pathway out of your body. So that's why I do the sulfurzyme powder in the morning. My personal regimen, it's the very first thing I do when I get up, and I do it with lukewarm water because that's your body's gonna go, whoa, if you give it cold water. Okay, so lukewarm room temperature water in the morning. I mix my sulfurzyme in there. I'll probably put some mineral essence too, because minerals are key to cellular function as well. And then I take that first thing before I do anything else. That is literally now, as I slept at night and all those toxins pooled in my body, where are they going to go? Where are they going to go if my detox pathways aren't open? They're just going to go somewhere else in my body and cause problems, right? So it's the very first thing your body wants to do is pee it all out, right? Pee and poop it out. It's a good thing. We got to pee and poop. Okay. So sulfurzyme powder, I love for that reason because it has prebiotics in it. And then I talked briefly about Ningxia, but just overall antioxidants, it's whole food nutrition. So it's giving you the dense foods that you need in order for your blood to be nice and healthy, for your cells to be nice and healthy, for your liver to be nice and healthy, because guess what? Your liver is actually the main organ filtering all of this stuff. So we want to have a clean and healthy liver. And one of the most passive ways that we can do that is drinking Ningxia every day and taking Juvatone. I take Juvatone like candy throughout the day, just because it helps to clean the liver. It helps to keep it nice and just working efficiently. So how was that? We are not too overwhelmed, right? We have our starting point is we are going to look at our bedroom first. We're going to look at our office space if you work at home. And we're going to look at what we can control and remove out of distance from our body and duration. And then we're going to look at what are we taking every day that's going to help support the strongest terrain possible. All right, guys, you are well prepped for EMFs. You are better off to put, if you're using an electric blanket for heat, you're better off to put something warm at the bottom of your bed to help heat up your bed under the covers than to use an electric blanket. Now, weighted blankets, another story. I'm a big fan of weighted blankets for sensory challenges with kids. It's actually better. You get much more deeper REM sleep, sleeping in like 62 to 65 degrees. But if that's cold for you, then you can heat, like that's a hot water bottle at the end of your foot bed and heat up the inside of your bed is a much better approach. I actually have one behind me right there. So the Soma Vedic is a little bit of a newer thing that has come out. There's a lot of things out there. We don't want to get confused, and we don't want to get into that point where we feel like we have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars when we can do some very simple steps that are going to make a very big difference. And you guys know I'm a big fan of your terrain, right? So like the best thing you can ever do is create the strongest terrain possible in your body, the best defense system that you can have. The Soma Vedic doesn't stop EMF radiation. So like just putting a Soma Vedic in your home, but you're still doing the AirPods, or you still have your Wi-Fi router on all the time and you've got Bluetooth everywhere, and maybe you're smart wired your home. That would be something to think about, is don't smart wire your home or pull it out, get it out. Is the Soma Vedic basically helps your body to balance and harmonize. Okay, so it's more of a terrain type of thing, then it's not going to stop EMF. So you still have to remove the exposures, but it helps your body harmonize.
I saw Brandy, she mentioned Defender Shield, and I just have it right here.
Yeah.
I love their products.
They're
and
great.
this is just great. You just can put your computer underneath there, or your TV, or even routers, whatever it is. They have different size things.
Yep.
And we've used this for years. It's fantastic. But I heard a lot of questions in here about smart meters. And if you already have one, what could you do?
You can cover them. So if you can't change something on your home, you can just cover it. Just like you can cover your Wi-Fi router and box with something from Defender Shield or some of these other places. I do like Defender Shield for sure. But you can cover it, would be a great option if you can't change it. Yeah. Melrose is actually something I diffuse a lot in hotel rooms because you don't know what they have going on. So it's very out of our control, but what's in our control is what we can diffuse and what we can take. There's a wide spectrum. So we have to be careful that not everything is bad because you don't know how it's going to affect your body, right? So we are actually living in a world of frequency all around us, whether it's that or whether it's something else. Your body is actually made up of frequency, which is why so many people feel it and some people don't feel it because it's very individual. So I think you just have to decide, is it something that you feel is falls into those categories we talked about, the 3Ds, right? You know, distance, duration. How does that feel to you? And is it something that you are concerned about? I mean, again, these are all just so individual questions. What we know though, without a doubt, is that the radiation or the frequencies that are around us that are causing probably, I would say, the biggest concern, especially if we go back to something I said in the very beginning, which is sleep, right? This is where you're going to feel the biggest impact in your health, is how many people put a phone next to them all night long, charging their phone, right? How many people have the Wi-Fi router on all the time, especially if it's in their office or in their bedroom or something like that. So how many people do this on the phone still all day long, right? AirPods, all these things are much more concerning to me. I mean, rosemary is a great oil just for protective measure. I mean, that's why it's part of Melrose, is because, and I, again, you know, when Gary was putting things together, he didn't make any mistakes, right? So the rosemary piece of it is a very protective herb, right, in itself. But it's when you're looking at the oil and the distilled oil and the power of that and the purity of that and strength of that, yes, it absolutely has a really, really great way of helping to protect, you know, the entire body from environmental. I'm not as concerned about the biomat. It's made up more of very, very low frequency, and also it has the
DC.
Yeah, and the crystals. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it has the amethyst, but the current is not an AC current. They have a converter in the box to change it to DC current. So it's not the same thing as like electric blanket.
Yes, and think about Ethernet, right? Like we just moved and I was so stoked that this house was hardwired. I was like, yes, like, right? Like hardwire something, because now you don't have exposure. Yeah.
And that may not look pretty. Like I have a 100-foot cable going through my house because my husband won't let me drill a hole, but of an Ethernet cable all the way to my computer. And then, you know, I still have a landline, so I do most of my talking on that. So, you know, those things can really help out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, there's a lot of, I know we need to get to Eric and I'm really excited, but like crystals, shungite, all of that. Yeah, so very fascinating, actually. I mean, I got crystals behind me too and all over the house. I think they're pretty as well. They're made of frequency as well, right? So they're coming from the earth. And, you know, it's interesting about certain crystals is some people actually react very poorly to certain crystals because of the frequency that they carry. Go ahead, Stacey.
Well, there's a lot of fake crystals out there too. Not that, I mean, I love crystals. I think they're pretty. And I had this one from like 18 and I always have it in front of my computer. But some of these crystals, and when people are putting these things in their roller bottles, they're buying shellacked ones and now you're mixing it with the oils, and, you know, they're not real products. They're, you know, fake ones sometimes. Not that it couldn't affect, not that a good one could not affect you in a negative as well.
Yeah, just remember they're coming from the earth, which means they're charged, right? And depending on your body and how you feel, it's just getting more and more aware of your body, right? The best thing that we can do is, and I preach this a lot on my social media, is not outsource our stuff to other people, right? Take it back, right? Take that power back, do the research, listen to how your body is feeling, because it's never going to steer you wrong, right? Your intuition is never going to steer you wrong.
One quick question, because you got 1 minute left. Everyone's asking about Apple Watches.
I mean, it's Bluetooth, right? Duration, distance. Think about that. May not affect you, but it may. Try not wearing it and see if you sleep better at night, because it's going to, you know, something is going to affect your parasympathetic nervous system. If there's distance close to your body and duration of how long you're wearing it.